appreciate everybody for joining on with us. Episode 69 now, I believe, of Tate's Take, the podcast. Remember to follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS, hashtag, as you know by now. I'm probably super tired of hearing about it, by the way, where basketball lives. Remember to subscribe. Thanks for those of you who already have, and those of you who are going to do so in the future. That's the word of the word of the minute, the word of the hour, the word of the day, the word of the week, the word of the month, the word of the year. Subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. Always tell the folks to make sure that you don't save it for the local barbershops. Don't save it for the local sports bars. Always remember that you have a voice here on my platform. So remember to subscribe, and hey, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama where they can find the best, the most entertaining, the most educational, and the most informational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. And without further ado, I want to bring in my guest, which will be the final one for the evening. And I do appreciate everybody for coming in and showing some love and doing their part and following along when I said I'm going to bring in one of my favorite guests. Love talking to this dude because he just got a plethora of knowledge per usual. Ken Sugiura, Georgia Tech men's basketball beat writer from the AJC. In case you don't know the abbreviations, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Give him a follow on Twitter at Ken Sugiura AJC. That is at Ken Sugiura AJC. How are you, Ken?
Doing well. John, how are you?
I know it's a lot of information to take in. Trust me, I know.
Yes, I gotta write this down.
No, I appreciate you for joining me. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Jackets. That's why you're here.
Right.
8 seed Loyola-Chicago against 9-seeded Georgia Tech. That's taking place somewhere right around the next 48 hours or so on Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TBS in Indianapolis, Indiana at Hinkle Fieldhouse. Let's start off with this. First things first. In terms of the details, because I didn't get as much information on it as I would have liked to, what were some of the details that you came away with in terms of the to the positive COVID test within the Georgia Tech program?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess I'll start at the beginning. What we know in total, I guess. Josh Pastner yesterday made the announcement that one member of the traveling party had been isolated after testing positive Monday for COVID. He was confident that it was an isolated case and it won't impact anyone else with the party, and obviously particularly with the team, as I'm sure most people are caring about. It was, and also I don't know how related it was or is. When the team was leaving Greensboro for Indianapolis on Sunday, their flight was delayed. And because there were two what they called abnormalities in testing after the win over Florida State on Saturday night, and they were above and beyond cleared to go, and so that was also just kind of part of what's happened here. I have it on pretty good authority. I'd say that it's a player. Certainly judging from the things that Josh Pastner was saying and kind of reading tea leaves, that's unfortunately, I think that's the case. It's not Jose Alvarado, and because he spoke with media yesterday, he wasn't isolated. And I spoke with Jordan Usher for a story that yesterday, so I'm going to guess it's not him either. And then Tristan Maxwell is a freshman. His name came up as I was talking with Coach Pastner yesterday about the case. He confirmed that it wasn't him. So it could be any of the other 12, I think it is. But yeah, it's obviously really unfortunate, regardless of who it is. This is a team, these kids, none of them been in the tournament, and obviously it's a strange year to go, but you feel for any of them to have to miss this. They all describe it as, the dream of a lifetime. And so, whether they win or not is you certainly, for them, you hope they win, but for someone to have to miss this, it really, really stinks for them. So, but thankfully that person is asymptomatic and being isolated, but obviously we'll have to miss the first two games. If they get through, and if the person is still asymptomatic, he could return to the team. But yeah, that's pretty much the sum of what I know, I think.
Now, Ken, we've been in multiple of these post-game press conferences together quite a bit, and it
Mm-hmm.
seems like a record player over and over and over. We constantly, consistently, and persistently hear Josh Pastner, the head coach over at Tech, say, the objective for us is to get old and stay old. And I remember when these guys were freshmen and he was preaching it after every game, and sophomores, and he was preaching it after every game, and
Right.
juniors and so forth. How much of that do you think, or not just that, had to do with some of the success that the team has had this season? Because I would imagine, and I don't want to answer for you, for
Mm-hmm.
me, I like to think that that is a substantial enough amount of some of the success. But outside of just, this isn't just anybody they're putting out there on the floor that is
Right.
of upperclassmen. What are some of the other things in addition to being a very mature group that has put them on this path to where they are an NCAA tournament team?
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think it has a lot to do with it. I mean, you look at Jose Alvarado, a 4-year starter. Moses Wright is a 2-year starter. Michael DeVoe is a 3-year starter. Jordan Usher, started most of last year and again this year. But Bo Parham was a guy who played a ton at VMI. And, was a 1,000-point scorer in 2 years, and I think has improved a lot. Khalid Moore has been an off and on starter for this is his 3rd year. Am I missing? Yeah. So and then so yeah. So all that to say, it's a very veteran team, and when Alvarado was a freshman, you played like you could see he was quick and talented and played with a lot of passion, but just wasn't under control most of the time. And now you look at him and he doesn't you can't take the ball off him. He's become a much better passer. He's better at finishing. And so all the kind of what you're saying, all the things that Josh Pastner has preached about developing players and winning with older players, kind of the model that Virginia and Notre Dame have had is really come to fruition. They've had beyond that, it's they've gotten some help with the recruiting through the transfer portal, particularly Jordan Usher and Bubba Parham, and now Rodney Howard, who came from Georgia. So that's part of it. Excuse me, Kyle Sturdivant also. And then, I mean, obviously, too, I think it's easy to say, and I think there's some truth to it, that this is a down year for the ACC. North Carolina and Duke aren't what they usually are. Virginia's been good, but maybe not at its peak, although they still beat Tech twice. And so there's, Louisville maybe wasn't as good. So there have been some opportunities for Tech to move up, maybe is higher than they might have in a normal year. So that's some of their success. But I would think they would have made it regardless. Maybe they would have an ACC title, but so I think that's part of it. And I think the kind of the flips of what other people who maybe are more supportive of the ACC would say is that, well, just because Duke and Carolina are down doesn't mean that other teams aren't as good, which you can certainly accept as a plausible argument. But yeah, so I think those are definitely two things that have been a part of it. But I think for sure the way that Pastner and his staff, Anthony Wilkins, Eric Rabino, Julian Swartz have developed these guys into really good players. When they Pastner likes to talk about Moses Wright, and it's easy to forget, but he had almost no offers coming out of high school. Wow. And now he's ACC Player of the Year. And maybe he's not the same level of other ACC players, but he's the best player this year, and so you can't take away from him. And it's a remarkable accomplishment, especially for him, for all the work he's put in, but also for the coaches that have developed him.
Yeah, I remember Josh Pastner first coming in as the head coach and just saying, obviously it is our objective to get top talent here, and not only that, but also, and then not only that, we are aware of the elite talent that comes out of this state, but we're not just going after any talent. We're going after the right talent that fits our program as well. And it seems like that's kind of panned out well for him. I want to say this real quick, and I know it's going to seem weird because I don't want to forget this piece, because I am dedicating this particular segment to him. But obviously last year, lost a really good friend in William Peace, who had been following Georgia Tech and was a Georgia Tech fan. And I was fairly close to him as well. And actually him being a person that really influenced me heavily to put this platform together. And
Wow.
now Georgia Tech is going on to the NCAA tournament, and that's the first thing that I thought of. One
Hmm.
of the first things, rather, that I thought of when I saw that happen. So I definitely wish that he was here, but I know that he can see that we're kind of putting together. Tech is putting together a very solid team, obviously,
Yeah.
and trying to put together a solid program here. Now, here's my other part of this, though, Ken, that
Mhm.
maybe you can help me out with. This is a
Sure.
Georgia Tech team that has won, I think, what, 8 or 9 games in a row or
Yeah.
something
Games.
along
Yeah.
that line. In addition to that, how often do you see a team like this, regardless of what kind of year they're having, beating Duke, beating Carolina, beating Kentucky, beating Florida State twice,
Right.
beating Virginia Tech, who for the most part has been ranked all season, and
Mhm.
Syracuse is a
Right.
fairly respectable program still.
And tournament.
Uh, how, yeah, in the tournament as well.
Yeah.
How is it that they ended? Did they get the shaft a little bit in terms of the seeding? I don't see. I thought they were deserving at least of a 7. What says
Uh,
you, Ken?
that's a tough one. I mean, uh, it's funny, like, I guess just because I was, looking at what the bracketologists were projecting, I was kind of conditioned that, oh, okay, they're a 10 seed. I don't think I invested a ton of thought into that. But yeah, when you lay out the case that you did, there's certainly an argument to be made. I think the things that probably were held against them, um, you know, the they didn't they had one really significant road win, Virginia Tech, and if you want to nitpick, they were coming off of their COVID pause, and so maybe they weren't at their best. And I think too, and for better or worse, I think I'm going to guess that their losses to Mercer and Georgia State were being held against them. It was a long time ago, and the circumstances were kind of unusual in that Josh Pastner decided before the season started we're not going to have contact practice and just trust that our guys can be able to play it, kind of be ready on their own, and because of his fear of someone getting a positive and contact tracing knocking out the whole team for 2 weeks. So that was his fear, and it's a legitimate understanding. His approach was obviously very unorthodox, and it backfired on him. But yeah, so it's funny. I think people, Tech fans, I guess, particularly, were saying you shouldn't count those losses. They were so long ago, and the contact stuff and all that. But I guess by the same token, if you're going to do that, if you're going to look at things through kind of a COVID lens, then you also have to look at that Virginia Tech game and say kind of the same thing. Would they have beaten them if Virginia Tech wasn't coming off its pause? And so, but I think I think what I understand, what I've heard often, I'm sure you've heard the same thing, is that one thing they look at, the committee looks at a lot, is who did you go on the road to beat? Actually, the other thing too is their non-conference schedule wasn't very good. Part of that wasn't their fault. They were going to play UAB, who turned out to be a pretty solid team. And Kentucky obviously wasn't nearly as good as people thought. Nebraska, their ACC Big Ten opponent, didn't turn out to be very good. So I think those things, and also but again, who did you beat on the road? Their list isn't as maybe as impressive as you would hope for. And so if I'm going to guess why they're a 9, those would be my reason. I mean, I don't know enough of the field to say Team X should be. Tech is much better than Team X or whatever. And actually, well, Clemson is, but yes, like there's other ACC schools now that I say that you look at it and think, well, I think Georgia Tech would prove itself better than them, but I think it's also not just the eyeball. If you put these two teams on the court, who's going to win? It's also who did more to prove themselves. And if memory serves, I was looking at it like those schools in particular. I think Clemson and Carolina had stronger non-conference schedules. So you would think that if you were picking teams, ranking them right now as of this moment, Tech wouldn't be the 36th team or the 33rd or whatever. But that's unfortunately that's not the way the committee works. At least for this year for Tech, and maybe in years to come with Tech, they'll benefit the other way where that maybe they're not the best. They started strong and finished slowly, but they were rewarded the same because the committee looks at each game. They say the same. So, but yeah, that's my sense of things.
Sure,
Sorry for the long
sure.
answer.
No worries. That's what you're here for, man. Detailed answer always better than one that's not. In the locker room right now, Ken Sugiura, Georgia Tech men's basketball beat writer from the AJC, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Follow him on Twitter at Ken Sugiura AJC. I've got a proposal, Ken, that I think we should go with. Now, granted,
All right.
we're keeping our fingers, toes, eyes, everything crossed right now, okay? But in the event that we're in this position, 300 or a similar position, 365 days from now with
Uh-huh.
COVID, hopefully we're not,
Right.
we got screwed last year out of not having the Final Four. I like to think that we can emulate or duplicate what Indiana's doing. I mean, think about it. We've got gyms all across the board. You know,
Right.
we've got games can be played at Georgia Tech, State Farm Arena. If they're playing at Lucas Oil, we can play them down at the Dome,
Right.
okay, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. While Athens may be a bit far, we've still got, you know, some of the HBCUs,
Right.
the Morehouses and
Yeah.
such. We've got
Yeah.
a gym up in Gwinnett Arena.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I might be missing out on a couple others.
College Park. They can play there.
Yeah, College Park. That's
Yeah.
another one. Emory, maybe. I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, we're gonna have to get on this. You're gonna have to help me, and we're gonna ride the train out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I oops, sorry about that.
No worries.
I want to say the NCAA at least has said, you know, we'll take care of you, you know, as far as Atlanta goes. I don't know, but I think I know Indianapolis, I think was in line already to get the Final Four this year, and I don't know who's supposed to get it next year. I mean, I guess potentially it could. I don't like if that city isn't like, you know, yeah, we want it. You know, you would think Atlanta would be a great possibility to do that. You know, I would wonder if they would just stay in Indianapolis just because that's where their headquarters are, and they proved it. They did it there already. But yeah. I mean, I remember someone tweeting about that or bringing that up. Yeah, there's plenty of places, and there's no shortage. Like I think the infrastructure is there for it to be done, I would think.
Let me ask you about this one. Tell me how concerned you are about this. Sister Jean is going to be returning, 101 years old. I want to give you the title of exactly what she means to this program, but I'm not exactly positive.
Chapel. Yeah.
Chaplain.
Yeah.
How couldn't imagine. It's not like she's getting out there on the floor playing any games or anything like that. But the last time that we, for the most part of us, have seen Sister Jean, that was when Loyola-Chicago went on that miraculous run all the way to the Final Four in what I believe was 2018. What are some of the concerns? As Josh Pastner, I know that you're right there, and I'm not trying to get you to answer for him per se, but I know that you're close enough in some of the press conferences and so forth, some of these Zoom meetings. Has that come up yet, or what are some of the conversations that's had with Josh Pastner as of late concerning to the NCAA tournament?
Specifically regarding Sister Jean, or about the tournament in general, or
a little bit of both.
Okay, well, you got your question up there, so I'll address that first. So Sister, it's interesting. Loyola came through. I don't know if you remember. I guess you would, because you know everything about basketball. But they came through Atlanta to go to the Final Four, and Sister Jean was there. Actually, had the privilege of talking to her a little bit, just like as they were about to win their Elite Eight game, which was kind of a neat thrill. But yeah, so she is going down to Indianapolis. She hasn't seen the team all season because she's been isolated, or she, I don't know, quarantine's right. Well, she's been, you know, they I don't know, maybe it's because they didn't have people at games, but she's been in touch with them. But I think, yeah, just I was on a conference call or Zoom call with Porter Moser and Cameron Krutwig, their center, and he was visibly excited about seeing her again. At least being in the same arena and be able to make eye contact. And they've been in touch on the phone and email and so forth. But so I would think it'll provide some kind of emotional. I mean, obviously, the NCAA tournament, it's not like you need to be more jacked up. But I think, yeah, anything can help. And so that I would think that will give them, something of an emotional lift or a little more juice. But as far as, so Josh Pastner has mentioned her saying, I think he said he was a big fan. And obviously, everyone that watched the tournament that year, she became such a focal point. It's hard not to be in her corner. And I think actually Jose Alvarado said something about her too, and just kind of being, liking that, thinking that was really cool. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's funny. It kind of puts Tech, in the villains corner of the ring. That I mean, it may or so. Everyone, I'm sure, the casual fans want to see Loyola move on and have Sister Jean, in the tournament for as long as they can. So it's funny that they've by no doing of their own. And it's funny because Josh, through the tournament, they see tournament last week, he became kind of a Twitter hero, or what do you call it, because of his, they played his voicemail and the kind of the gushing thank yous he was giving at the end, kind of were going crazy on Twitter for a while. So I think there was and he has his face mask, and so I thought there's a chance he could become kind of one of those kind of folk heroes in the tournament, particularly if he braided his hair, which I don't think is going to happen. But anyway, but again,
I was going to ask you. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the whole hair braiding thing. Is that something we can look forward to for the tournament game?
Unfortunately, I'll be breaking news on your show if you want to call it news. I asked the NCAA if they will have like a hairstylist or a barber in the bubble, and they will not. So it would be up to the players to braid his hair, and I don't think they're ready to take that. Maybe they are, but I don't think that's going to. So unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen. Much to everyone's chagrin. But
I got you.
Yeah, but anyway, but as far as the tournament goes, I think Josh typically he plays it fairly close to the vest as far as game plan or that kind of thing. He's obviously, I think he's very, very respectful of what Loyola has done with good reason. He's actually friends with Porter Moser, the Loyola coach. They have had a long history together. But yeah, it'll be a tough game. I mean, it's funny what you're saying about the seeding with Tech. Loyola's, they're pretty salty about it too. Moser was saying, if you looked at the net rankings and how that fell with seeding, like all the top four, and this I don't know this for certain. This is what he was saying. The top four teams in net were the top four seeds in the tournament. The next four were all the 4-2 seeds. And then they were 9, and they're 8. So he was a little miffed about that. So it's two teams that are probably a little, can make a really strong case that they were underseeded and got stuck with each other. So maybe this is a game that in other circumstances would have been around a 32 game or something like that. But yeah, so but Loyola's a really good team. They're number 1 in Ken Palman in defensive efficiency. They got Cameron Krutwig, their center, who was on the 18 team. He's a freshman. He was there. He was a conference player of the year, and he was a 13 All-American for AP. So yeah, they'll have their hands full.
Wow, conference player of the year versus conference player of the year. That's Moses, right? By the way, 2 more questions, and then we'll get you up out of here, Ken.
Uh-huh.
Who is this person? Who is Georgia Tech's X factor for this team, or anyways, particularly, I guess, going into this game anyways, or just on the team in general? Who would you call that player?
Generally, I would say Jordan Usher. He's very much the team's energy guy. He really, goes all out all the time. A good defender, goes hard to the basket. As games where he's better and worse, shooting and scoring, and if he can, you feel pretty good that he'll bring his defensive game and he'll hustle and he'll get his guys going. But if he can give 15 points, that changes things a lot. I think over the course of the season, I think Michael DeVoe, I wouldn't call him an X factor, but he is kind of a bellwether, and he's had a really good run of games lately. So he's someone they definitely need. When he doesn't score, they kind of struggle. But those would be 2 guys for sure. I would say are going to be kind of you need them going for Georgia Tech to have a really good chance of winning.
The emotional leader in Jose Alvarado, the silent killer in Michael DeVoe, and the X factor in Jordan Usher. Last question for you here, Ken. Couple of keys to the victory. I guess we'll play a little fill in the blank right here, and I'll read it twice just in case. I'll give you a little bit of time to think about it. If Georgia Tech does blank and avoids blank, they'll advance to round 2. I'll ask it one more time. Fill in the blank. If Georgia Tech does this and avoids this, they'll advance to round two of the NCAA tournament. What are those two blanks?
Um, I don't know if they're the two blanks, but certainly, kind of as their season has gone, you know, one thing that they've relied on, especially, is forcing turnovers, creating steals, and which leading to transition baskets. So and I think again, listening to that Zoom call today with Loyola, not that they wouldn't have been aware, but they were very kind of concerned about Georgia Tech's ability to dig out turnovers. They against FSU they got 25 turnovers, which is crazy. I think it's like the most that they had Florida State had in a game since like 2011 or something like that. And so they're I'm sure obviously Loyola's going to be very wary of it, but obviously every team is wary of that. But so but if Georgia Tech can do that, if they can get out 15 turnovers, 12 turnovers, and that'll they need that. The other thing is I think 3-point shooting. That's something that Josh Spencer said a lot. It's I'm sure you've heard it too. Having been in the same press conferences, it's a make or miss game. Just because you have an open shot, a clean look at a three doesn't mean it's necessarily going to go in. You can have a lot of good looks and shoot 3 for 15 or whatever, or it can be 7 for 14 or for 15. So I think they don't have to be totally hot, but they just can't be cold where they're 2 for 14 or something like that. Again, I guess partly because Loyola is so good defensively.
Sure.
That you're not going to get a lot of cheapies or anything like that. So those would be two things I would say would be two things they'll have to do or avoid.
8 seed Loyola-Chicago, the Ramblers. 9 seed Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets. Hashtag Together We Swarm. Friday, 4 p. Eastern Standard Time on TBS in Indianapolis, Indiana. Live from Hinkle Fieldhouse. I appreciate my guy for joining us, man. Ken Sugiura, Georgia Tech men's basketball beat writer for the AJC. Again, Atlanta Journal-Constitution, in case you're not aware. At Ken Sugiura, AJC. That is at KenSugiura. AJC. Ken, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Hey, Deshaun, it's a pleasure. Anytime. Always good to talk with you.
Always good talking to you as well. That's my buddy there, Ken Segura. That appreciate him for joining and dropping some knowledge on everybody. And listen, uh, I told you guys you never know who you're gonna get here on the on the program. So I really appreciate those that have come on. Obviously, talking about Ken Segura and the few people that have chimed in on the comments as well. So overly appreciative. Just very thankful for the guests that have been able to join me here on the pod and just the information, the plethora of information that they've given all of us, and helping you guys maybe in the process with some of this information fill out your bracket and so forth. You may not have known a lot about Loyola Chicago's team from this year. You may not know a lot about Georgia Tech's team, who's going back to the NCAA tournament for the first time, and probably I feel like somewhere close to about 10 years or so, maybe close to it. But certainly thanking them for that. So remember, go ahead and you guys know the drill already. You already know. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you share with a friend. Take the podcast anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. Don't save it for the local barbershops. Don't save it for the local sports bars. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your mama, tell your grandmama, tell your baby mama, where they can find the best, the most entertaining, the most educational, and the most informational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast, nowhere else other than where you can follow at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS, hashtag where basketball lives. We got some people coming up tomorrow. Let's see if we can tease this thing out. Who's up tomorrow? What's tomorrow? The 18th? Just follow me on social media and I'll let you guys know there who's going to be coming on, I guess, as far as tomorrow. So appreciate everybody for checking it out. Remember just to share. It takes less than 30 seconds to subscribe. Share with a friend. Everybody knows somebody who loves basketball. Everybody knows somebody that's filling out a bracket. Do a brother a good solid fave. I hate to beat that dead horse with a dead horse, but listen, every time you do that, it's for a good reason. You actually are helping somebody achieve their goals, their dreams, and their aspirations in life. Yeah, that would be this guy right here by doing so. So just sharing along with somebody else that you know, forward it over to them. If you need the link, I'll send it over to you as well. And just appreciate you guys for looking out. Oh, by the way, I want to make sure that I mention this. I brought my dude Kobe Dan on because I even help you pay your bills on this thing. That's right. I help you pay your bills. We broke down the best spread for each region of the NCAA tournament for the first round. I brought on Kobe Dant on yesterday. That is episode 65. So I brought him on yesterday, and he's helping you out. So go check out my interview that I did with Kobe Dant, helping you pay some bills, that type of stuff. I don't know if it's gas money for you. I don't know if it's rent money for you. I don't know if it's grocery money for you. Whatever it is, he's certainly helping you out with your bracket. So appreciate everybody for checking that out, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Remember, where basketball lives.